mineral resources, need for market development, need for economic development, and people that want access to new markets, right? So we don't target major companies in the US. We target Fortune 1000 and below. We're talking about companies that are ready to take the risk, ready to enter markets that historically have been seen as no-go zones or as dangerous zones. People with risk appetite and hunger, and match them up with market spaces that they're interested in, right? And so when people meet, there's going to be a natural synergy there. I'm just a matchmaker.
Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. First, I have to extend my appreciation, one, for sponsoring the conference, not only financially, but dedicating your team to support us during the IMF and the World Bank Spring Meeting. Thank you for your support.
Oh, thank you so much, Kafuti. I mean, the honor was truly ours. We had such a great time at the conference and the event afterwards. And honestly, it was one to be experienced for a lifetime. But yeah, happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Before we dive into Elysium Strategy and some of the amazing work you are doing, if you can share with us, it has been a busy year for you from Davos and the IMF and the World Bank Spring Meeting, and I know the United Nations coming up. Can you share with us the experience that you have so far this year in terms of engagement with all these world leaders?
Absolutely, absolutely. It truly has been a very dynamic year for us. As we all know, Africa is truly in the headlines in many, many spaces, in the policy circles, the economic circles, and the investment circles, especially people trying to move capital, realign and re-strategize their policies towards Africa, especially as we shift right now in rhetoric from aid-focused relationships with Africa to a trade-focused relationship in Africa. So yeah, absolutely. My firm, Elysium Strategy Group, that's exactly what we're built for. What we focus on is what's uniquely called commercial diplomacy. And what people would normally call frontier markets, we have termed as pre-emerging markets. And those markets are truly on the cusp of, they're security stable environments that don't really have the economic mobility that we're looking for. So the economic activity isn't exactly attractive to traditional investors. So what we look for is those investors that are very excited about getting into markets that would be considered blue ocean markets. It's not your traditional markets. It's very, exciting. Think of the Wild Wild West back in the founding eras of American history. So that's what we focus on. And this year we have met a lot of people that are really taking a second look at African markets. And what does that truly mean for the traditional investor or somebody that's just now getting into those, geopolitical international investments? We demystify those areas for them. We help them strategize, hey, what does it mean to get into this market? What are the historical contexts that are important? And one thing that our team brings forward is, one, we have a team that has a national security background and very deep regional expertise and on-the-ground experience of what it means to be in Africa as a continent.
So in terms of national security background, so that means your organization can work in a lot of countries where a lot of American companies think it's risky, but you have the team on the ground that can provide the knowledge, the access to information with the decision maker. Would you say that's fair analysis?
Absolutely. Yeah. That's actually a very accurate description of exactly what we do. So we actually have a dual-pronged approach to help understand what's happening on the ground in Africa as a market, but also on the flip side here in DC as well. We'll get to that later, I assume. But on the part that you're talking about, we do have a team of national security professionals and veterans of various environments that work with our team to help people that are new to the market, that are interested in exploring the continent, get on the ground, alleviate themselves of any concern or stress. So you're talking a personal security detail that rivals that of heads of state to get you into those places that, like I said, are pre-emerging markets that might be a little historically security challenged, but they're newly stabilizing and they're ready for economic investment. We give everybody that feel good of, hey, this is whatever African country we're in, this is Africa, meet the people. Interestingly enough, oftentimes we don't really wind up needing the security detail, but it provides that psychological safety that kind of helps that investor go from.
They need it, it's there available for them.
Exactly. They can feel good around it. And then oftentimes we wind up just saying, hey, let's just hang out. And they feel good. And it changes a lot of the dynamic very quickly.
Okay. So what's some of the success model or the engagement strategy that you think is very successful when you engage in this African market, right? Because American, as we know, they're really good in terms of innovation. They're coming up with new products that can solve a lot of challenge there in Africa. One of the client we have discussed, the renewable batteries, where they can help address some of electricity issue that we're facing there across the continent. But how do you make it sure that one, first, they get access to that market, and then two, they also work with the local people, not only to do the transaction, but to train them, to create jobs and have knowledge transfer? How do you engage with them in those type of strategies?
Of course. I mean, history is always good context to start with. The unfortunate reality is the historical relationship between external entities in the West and Africa used to be one of a unilateral economic engagement. We're talking about people would come in, extract, take profit, and leave the entire area they came into, not at best not benefiting from that economic transaction, or at worst feeling exploited and robbed of their resources that Africa is known to be rich with. So what we bring in is a holistically beneficial approach that benefits everybody, right? So if I win, you win, we win together, which is greater than one of us winning, right? Yeah. And so what we do is we help people that are interested in Africa, first and foremost, understand the region they're going into, not as a market, but as a place of people. What is the history there? What is the history of the people in their relationship with the material resources that they're looking to see a benefit in, right? And what is the people's relationship? What is the job market that's there? What is the cultural environment that you're walking into? Religion is important, language is important, the culture is important, the ethnic makeup, clan, things of that nature. So understanding Africans as a people first is important. And I don't use the word African. We always talk about the country we're talking about, but I understand for the podcast's purpose.
Well, we can go specific. Yeah. We can name some country. Yeah.
But you get it.
We can name some country, but yeah, can you be more specific?
Absolutely.
So what you mean by training them? So you take them to the trip, to the ground, they actually visit the people, and meet the local people, and visit some of the area where they can set up a manufacturer. Actually, so
exactly. So we actually take them on a trip, right? Okay. So when I say like regional understanding, I don't mean just a briefing and a PowerPoint slide. No. We're getting on a plane.
Yes.
We're getting on a plane. Yeah. We're getting on the ground. We're meeting with heads of state. We're meeting with the ministers. We're meeting with the local capital managers. We're looking at the ground that business is going to be built on, and the people that are hopefully that are going to be the end users, the employees, the economy that they're looking to participate in and be a part of. And so there's a full white glove process from first knowing the market, seeing the market, understanding the market. Then we help them through our partner networks on get really deep market intelligence. And then after that, we help them through the process of getting those MOUs signed, getting those investors in the same rooms with the ministers, making sure that this is seen from ideation all the way to execution, the handshakes, the ribbon cutting. We handhold them through the entire process.
That's great. I didn't know. I just thought you mean educating them with the PowerPoint presentation. It's amazing that you actually make the trips there, having them visiting the ground, and also meeting with the government official, and then see some area where they can actually build their manufacturer or meet potential customers as well, which is great. But with that same amount of thinking, right? Because sometimes a lot of this African country, when they receive this type of investor delegation, they start making some crazy demand. How do you overcome those kind of challenge where you bring this investor and then the government officials start making all this type of requests?
There are cultural consideration and cultural norms, and that's why, our team that's made up of very diverse people that have had experience on the ground, we pull their expertise, right? We manage expectations. We go through something akin to a rehearsal, if you will. So we do talk to both parties before both parties ever meet. And we do have the pre-existing relationships on the ground as well. So we kind of know the partners that they are going to meet on the ground. So there's a lot of expectation management. There's a lot of priming. There's a lot of massaging those meetings before it happens. Again, that's behind the scenes. Neither client really feels like they're being managed or anything of this sort. But really, what we do is we take the mystery, surprise, and manage expectations without anyone feeling controlled.
Pretty much, you can be more like a gatekeeper software, right? You want to make sure that all the information go through first, you process it, you analyze it before it's been presented to the entire team.
I would say we're more the analysts, right? We take that raw data and take it and turn it into usable information for both sides that both parties understand, right? So that way we avoid miscommunication and it just really expedites the process.
So let's talk a little bit more also about commercial diplomacy.
Let's do it.
I love to indicate more about commercial diplomacy. Can you share with us a little bit more about this side of your business that involves commercial diplomacy?
Of course, of course. Commercial diplomacy is a rather novel term that's gaining a lot of popularity. It's a lot like one of those words, like, what does it mean? It's whatever you want it to mean. But truly, the way we look at it is taking relationships between two sovereign entities. In this case, we'll use the United States, the Western markets, which is what I focus on. So we focus on the United States and what does the American relationship with African countries look like? And it's very individual, almost down to the region sometimes. And we navigate those relationships bilaterally, hence the diplomacy element. It's not a one-sided, what does America tell these African countries to do? What do these American investors tell African countries to do? Absolutely not. It goes both ways. Hey, this is what we're looking for. This is what we're looking for. How can we meet in the middle? And we focus largely on the economic side, but naturally there's a policy element involved too. So to smooth out the economic engagement, we also work on the policy front and help African leaders truly understand how American policymaking works. So we help them understand how DC works. We help them understand how certain mechanisms like AGOA, the African funding mechanism that we had back in the day, historically, Millennium Challenge Corps. I don't know when this will be aired, but it might be back. I don't know. But things that benefit African markets that maybe all leaders and private sector entities on the continent might not know to make the relationship easier and hence diplomatically more functional.
Okay, that's great. I believe that some of the work you are doing can be supported by USAID and Prosper Africa, but given that many of these organizations now have been kind of suspended or been close out, how do you overcome the challenge, right? As a private company, you cannot really there's so much you can take as a private company. Well, how do you overcome that challenge that we have also the pressure of the Chinese that are coming in there to invest in the continent as well?
Absolutely, absolutely. It's truly unfortunate that a lot of those major organizations that did exist to help facilitate a lot of these entities and a lot of these projects are no longer with us. But in a way, it does actually help companies like myself because now we can get to the brass tacks and truly make this a mutually beneficial transaction where there's supply, mineral resources, need for market development, need for economic development, and people that want access to new markets, right? So we don't target major companies in the US. We target Fortune 1000 and below. We're talking about companies that are ready to take the risk, ready to enter markets that historically have been seen as no-go zones or as dangerous zones. People with risk appetite and hunger and match them up with market spaces that they're interested in, right? And so when people meet, there's going to be a natural synergy there. I'm just a matchmaker and I help make the relationship process a little bit easier. So with that, granted, we don't have those major international government organizations anymore, but in a way, we're kind of removing a lot of bureaucracy and just making sure everybody gets what they need, nothing more, nothing less, and the transaction can happen. And honestly, at the end of the day, I win when they break ground. I don't benefit from the process. I benefit from people getting employed, people seeing profit realization, and at the end of the day, mutual beneficial outcomes for the companies, the investors, the state leaders, and American policy towards Africa.
Okay, so just to clarify, when you mean you don't benefit when just you do the introduction, but you benefit when there's execution of the project, really, when they actually building something or they actually investing mineral or something. Exactly. Can you share a little bit more about some of the sector or some of the work that you have done, across the continent?
Yeah, a lot of this is in process. We do focus on big market moving and sectors. So in a way, there's a lot of things I can't get into the detail of, but I can, yeah. But I'm not a project development firm, right? Project management firm. I don't benefit from multiple bureaucracies integrating for something just to be busy for the sake of busyness. I benefit when I can prove success and I can build a portfolio on success and organizations that get things done. Yeah. I'm not funded by the government. I'm funded by the outcome of companies being successful, right? So the sectors that I focus on are the ones that we have essentially theorized and are starting to prove build an economy and stabilize an environment quickly and effectively. So they're not random sectors, but you also hear them in the news too. So it's critical infrastructure,
Okay.
critical minerals, energy, and we're talking all sorts of energy there too, fossil fuels, rare earth minerals, all of that. And technology and telecommunication in the financial sector. So we're talking banks, fintech. So those sectors we have identified can help a region go from barely stabilizing,
Okay.
economically developing, to economically developed, and get into that really developing early economy status.
Okay, so those are very important sectors that you mentioned there with regard to the mineral.
Ooh, everybody loves minerals.
Yeah, critical mineral now.
Yeah.
So with the critical mineral, are you also focusing in terms of making sure they also do transforming there on the ground, right? It's not just subtract the mineral and make sure that they also process there on the ground. How do you make sure that they actually creating jobs there?
Exactly. No, we're not just building mining companies, right? So we make sure that we create supply chains that employ largely in theater first, or what we would call in theater, but in the markets first. That's going to be our major job sector. We're not just creating miners, we're looking at building refineries, we're looking at really housing those processes in the country as much as possible before export. So turning it into an export and not just an extraction process. And the processing until at least as much of a finished material as possible,
Okay.
and then exporting it.
Rwanda and the DRC just signed an agreement, and Donald Trump said part of those agreement there will be some critical mineral that the U.S. will getting access to those critical mineral. Are you also looking into DRC, and if so, which mineral are you focusing in? Where are you right now?
I know. No, that's the question we all want to know. Yes, you're right. That was such a good announcement. I really wish the best for the DRC and this entire trade policy. There's a lot of excitement about the DRC here in policy circles, and we do have some conversations going. We're really excited about what we can bring. At the end of the day, we're not trying to be redundant. So there's a lot of people doing a certain type of work within the critical mineral space. So we're looking for ways that we can add to the economic, and add in a very ethical way. And that word, unfortunately, is not used often in this sector, and it should be. And so we're exploring relationships with some companies that we can't really get into that are looking to do some very innovative work in that space. And even sectors surrounding it, right? Minerals isn't just mining or refining. You have an entire
The value chain, right? Yeah. Yes. The mineral. One of my friends was sharing with me that they also need a big supplier. They need food. They need also electricity. They need there is other value chain that come through the mineral
equipment,
yeah.
everything of this sort. So we are definitely looking at just not only the sector of critical mineral extraction, but everything else surrounding that, and then economic activity as well.
Okay. I know you cannot share a lot in terms of the company that you are working with right now, but can you share in terms of the countries, some of the priority countries that you want to engage with? Is we have some relationship here within DC. We can always help. Maybe we have some of
if you're listening,
have some contact as well.
Yeah.
So can you share with us in terms of some of the country that you have as a priority, and what's the strategy? How do you engage with them, and where do you want to take them if they partner with you?
Of course. I mean, everybody on the continent would be my dream, right? I would love to get every country within Africa to first world status, and that is the plan. I think it's possible, but right now, I would say, is it a dream list? In some way?
Your wish list. So,
yeah, let's do that. So in no specific order, so please don't get mad at me in what order I say this in, but Cote d'Ivoire is definitely on my list.
Cote d'Ivoire is a good one.
Yeah.
I mean, we have such a great ambassador from Cote d'Ivoire, forward-thinking leader, doing some amazing work here. So, Cote d'Ivoire is a great country. So I think you're in the right path. Yeah.
Perfect. And again, there are some countries that I might list that we may or may not have pre-existing relationships with, but a deeper relationship is definitely on my list. So we'll throw, the DRC on there.
Yes, okay.
Man, I'm blanking. Oh, let's go to East Africa for a little bit. Kenya, of course.
Yeah, Kenya, just mobile fintechs, the leader in fintech, and then
Silicon Valley of the area. What else? Again, we are just in many sectors too. So Ooh, Somalia,
Somalia,
Djibouti. I know the risk appetite there is very high, but hey, they have a lot going on there. I mean, you have a very long coast, opportunities for critical infrastructure. What else?
What about a friend, Botswana? We just had the vice
Botswana.
president of
Oh, of
Botswana
course,
here.
Botswana. You name it, Mozambique.
Especially when it comes to technology, Botswana have the capital, right? They have a free education system. They have some of the highest education population. So American companies, they're looking for like back-end support. Botswana can be an ideal country to provide a customer support.
You don't
there
have
for
to
Botswana.
sell me on Botswana.
Botswana,
that is my, yes.
yeah.
Again, I'm just kind of like looking at the continent right now, right? So absolutely, Botswana is definitely on the list. And just what they've done for their economic development can definitely be replicated.
And there are some great leaders, who
absolutely.
And GW alum, and so we guess what?
Oh man, good taste, good taste. So I would say really any of those countries, but really the invitation's open to the entire continent. I think, just being from the continent myself, any country that truly wants to tap into investors from the West and really understand the policy side of the US, understand how DC works, bring in those investors into those sectors, let me know. We'll make something happen. We'll get you a proposal. We'll get you a presentation, how we plan to do it from beginning to end. So there's no surprises in the process. You'll meet the people that will be building those facilities in your country, in your theater. And then we'll cut a ribbon and have a cake and celebrate. So yeah, we like to move fast.
That's great. So maybe a couple more questions before we wrap up. This was a great conversation. You engage a lot of big companies here and then government officials as well in Africa. What about small, mid-sized company? Do you also engage with them? Do you have any room for small companies?
I actually don't discriminate on size. We're looking at capability. What are you looking to do? When we look at the financial modeling, is this viable and is there interest on the other side? So policy, industry, capital, if it all matches up, we're good to go. There's no size discrimination.
Okay, that's great. That's great. It's good to focus on the capability because, American company here, what's OpenAI, right, was just very small and, within few months, it become a multi-billion-dollar company. So it can be a small company, but if they have the right capability, they have the ability to solve a complex problem in Africa.
Exactly. And again, it's demystifying, right? Making sure that people that truly understand what they want in Africa and they're willing to do it right and vice versa. If there's like somebody right there that wants to bring in a specific actor or, somebody that's active in a specific space, we'll get that match made and make sure everything is done right on both sides.
I guess maybe last question, if you can share with us some of your short-term and long-term goal. What do you have in the pipeline coming up in the next few weeks or the next few months? Anything else you want to share with the audience? And anything that the diaspora can get involved with you and how can they engage with you as well?
Of course. So first of all, it's so great to have this conversation. I would love to connect with anybody that wants to chat, but you can find me at elysiumstrategy.com. I am on LinkedIn. My first name Amal, last name Ali. And what are some things coming down the pipeline? I mean, we have, oh man, we're swamped right now. So we do have a couple projects in the energy sector, and we do have a client interested in the mineral side as well. And then we do have a critical infrastructure project in East Africa. So a lot of these things, we don't like to get ahead of ourselves. We are a boutique company. We're very specific about who we work with. So we're not taking on thousands of clients, not a Fortune 500. So all that to say is, we have some big things happening, and you'll know on my website as soon as some of those things get to that point where we can talk about it publicly. You guys will know first.
I'm not sure if you feel comfortable to talk about publicly, but affordable housing, one of the East African country.
Of course, I mean, I was kind of speaking around that. We're involved in a very interesting project where, we have the libido corridor that we talk about just like in a really energy-centric capacity. But, when you have people that are in that sector, they need housing. And we are involved in making sure that housing is accessible and making sure that we enable that project in DRC. So we are working closely with some of the stakeholders there. And we're very excited about that. That's definitely one of the primary things in our pipeline right now.
Yeah, we're looking forward. Hopefully that will be one of the big announcements for next year conference.
Definitely.
And thanks for your support. Thanks for your partnership. And we are looking forward to collaborate more in the coming years and you continue to make more impact across the continent.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Amal. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.
And please subscribe to our YouTube channel, subscribe to GraphClick, the LinkedIn page, GraphClick, and Instagram page as well. We will continue to produce this type of quality content for you. So please support us.